Hey folks, y'all see the title here. I'm not going to give much in the way of perfunctory, but everyone knows this by they see the picture, the still shot of the lone man standing with his shopping bags in his hand, standing in front of a tank column and climbing up on the tank. And well, the still shot, you just see that and people just see it as defiance. Yes. Well, China hasn't changed much, and well over 1,000 people that China is willing to admit to didn't make it to see the next day of this incident here. So that, take it for what it is, but it was today, June 4th, 1989. I remember when this all went down. I was actually in Germany. I was in Bamberg, Germany when all this happened. So, of course, we were watching, CNN aired it live. And in the aftermath, CNN was like, "Ooh, this is the last time we do anything live in China." And don't worry, I couldn't believe that China allowed them to do it. But anyway, that's a different story. To this day, ask anyone from China that lived in China, they can't even speak about the Tienanmen Square incident. The Chinese in China, now over here, yeah, you can. But over there, yeah, no. People like to say, look, America, we ain't nowhere near perfect, not even close to perfect. We're missing about 3 letters from completing the word perfect. No one will never be perfect. Don't think perfect is the word and the definition of it. That's it. But between what I've seen in the places that I've been around the world and United States, I'll stay here. Thank you very much. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this going. Let me put my little bubble head back up there and let's get the show on the road.
It was spring 1989. An English programmer came up with the idea for a World Wide Web. Plans to open the first McDonald's in Moscow were underway. And change was on the horizon. Anti-communist sentiment was growing in the Eastern Bloc.
Nationalist tensions are spilling over.
And in China, young people took to the streets to call for reform, but were met with a force beyond imagination.
I walked into a revolution.
15 years ago, China was still almost totally isolated.
Oh, and just to keep from being saying, you copied this, that, and other, you got to break in. You know who that is. That's Mao Zedong. How they didn't, something that they could never imagine. What? Have you been paying attention to your daily life year after year? But okay.
From the rest of the world. Today, the encouragement of private enterprise, free markets, foreign investment, the introduction of Western products and ideas has made this country the pioneer in the communist world's search for reform. But now, China's reform program has run into trouble.
Inflation officially has been at the 20% level in recent months. Corruption has grown a great deal.
These dislocations, caused by an economy that is only half reformed, neither communist nor capitalist, have generated widespread public discontent. In the dead of night, 2,000 students marched through the streets of Beijing, calling for democracy, human rights, and the resignation of the Chinese government. Their destination, Tienanmen Square in the city center. It was here that the students placed a huge banner honoring the memory of Hu Yaobang, who died on Saturday in political disgrace, purged by Communist Party hardliners 2.5 years ago for his liberal views. To the students, however, Hu represented hope for reform and change, hopes that, to many Chinese, have been dashed by recent government efforts to scale back economic and political liberalization. There has never been a challenge to the leadership of Communist China like this one. In cities all across the country, crowds taking to the streets to demand democracy and freedom. In commemorating Hu's death by demanding the implementation of the progressive policies he advocated, the students have put the government on the defensive, most notably by using tactics such as the peaceful sit-in that the authorities here have never seen.
Oh, and something else. Jiang Zemin, I've posted him before in my community tab. Him and Hu Jintao and all those other guys, the Gang of Four. But anyway, he just succumbed last year. Oh, I don't remember how old he was. I think he was in his 90s. But he was the premier. He was the leader of China at the time that the Tienanmen Square deal went down. And pay attention to signage. You're going to see some spots in the video where the signs are going to be in English. Okay, you like, well, why are they being English? This is China. No, I mean, check. You can do a search and see the percentage of Chinese people to speak English. I mean, it's in the back there's very few. You know, they're in single digits. The signs wasn't for other Chinese people. The signs was for the West, mainly the United States. That's how you spread propaganda. I'm not all propaganda. I ain't saying it was bad. I'm just saying that's how you get the message out, because the signs that are in Cantonese or Chinese or whatnot, that's not for you. That's for their own people. The ones that's in English, that's for you. Now notice there ain't none in Russian. You ain't gonna see none in French. You're not going to see none in Spanish. Pay attention. Pay attention. This is, I've been trained to look for things that most people just glaze over and don't pay any attention. But that's just how we roll. Anyway, onward.
The students got a big boost when several official Chinese newspapers defied government orders and published accurate accounts of the events of the past week.
If you're going to have a student movement, you must seek support from the workers and peasants. Only if they understand can we succeed.
Again and again, the badly outnumbered police were overwhelmed and pushed aside. This was the demonstrators' destination, Tienanmen Square, the heart of Beijing, the seat of the government. The scene at Tiananmen showed the depth of public discontent here now over inflation, corruption, and the lack of political freedom. On the eve of Mikhail Gorbachev's visit, China's rebellious students upped the stakes in their confrontation with the government, adopting a new set of tactics to force a faster pace of reform. 200 students started a hunger strike, marching through Beijing to downtown Tienanmen Square, vowing to stay without food until the authorities agreed to...
That sign is for you. It's not for it's not for the Chinese. It's not for the French. It's not for, that sign's for you. This is what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. And we were on alert because we knew, well, I mean, it's not classified or anything. Now, all this is public knowledge. We were on alert because we knew Gorbachev was on the move, well, going there. Anytime during the Cold War era, when it was still East and West Germany, Cold War era, every time when somebody moved, the combat forces were on alert, and I was in one of them, 2nd Armored Cavalry.
Recognize their illegal Students' Federation. With Mikhail Gorbachev, the Soviet Union's pioneer of political reform, due here on Monday, no one in the Chinese leadership wants him to have a reception like this.
This is now the third day in which about 1,000 students have been carrying out a hunger strike to press their demands for democracy.
Gorbachev's reforms have been extremely successful, so we hope his visit will help accelerate political reform in China.
A growing number of those in the square are not students, but journalists, professional people, and especially workers impatient for change. For China's leaders, there could not be a more embarrassing or frightening set of circumstances.
Now some thoughts. I came to cover a summit. I walked into a revolution. A massively peaceful statement by the people, but still a revolution.
Huge crowds again surged through the center of Beijing. People from all walks of life, workers, taxi drivers, shopkeepers, even some peasants from the countryside, all lending their support to the hunger strikers' demand for freedom and democracy. At the same time, over 100,000 people demonstrated in Shanghai, where 300 students had begun their own hunger strike.
批评我们啊，都是应该的啊。我这次来也不是请你们来原谅我们的啊，不是的。
Communist Party Chief Zhao and Premier Li visiting Tienanmen Square to appeal for an end to the student hunger strike. Late in the evening, Premier Li appeared on nationwide television to announce that the situation was out of control and that the army was being called in to restore order.
The situation in Beijing is getting worse, and it is going to bring out a nationwide riot if we don't really do anything to stop this situation.
Communist Party Chief Zhao, a liberal who had sympathized with the students, he had been forced to resign.
There is word authorities decided he had to go because he refused to agree to use force against the students.
For a month, the government has taken very calm and tolerant attitude towards the students' demonstration. We did this because we love our students.
Masses of demonstrators marched out of Beijing and rode in cars to the west. Before dawn, more than 100,000 were on the outskirts of the city, taking the confrontation to the troops, not waiting for the army to reach town.
The People's Liberation Army, blocked by the people. The troops cannot move to clear Tiananmen Square.
This is CNN's Prime News, and in Beijing, Bernard Shaw.
Let's go quickly to Jeannie Mose in Tiananmen Square. Jeannie?
Bernie, we don't have any real hard information down here. The same announcement keeps coming over the PA system. It's an official announcement signed by the Premier of China, according to the announcer, and it talks about martial law being imposed. Here in Tiananmen Square, it was a night of tension, a daybreak of celebration, a morning of uncertainty. Yes, Bernie.
I'm being told that the government officials are coming into the CNN control room now. This man with a piece of paper in his hand, I'm certain that is not a party invitation. Okay, let me quickly tell you what this official is saying. If you do not obey the order, you will not be allowed to come in. This official on the right side of your screen is saying to CNN, if you do not obey the order.
Right here, 500-4100.
You have him call us. You have him call us personally and explain to us what is happening here.
If you cannot give us an explanation, fine.
We're told that President George Herbert Walker Bush is watching what's happening. President Bush is saying, quote, word of the news blackout is very disturbing.
Our government let me to tell you, now stop your transmission.
These characters being written on this legal pad, in effect, are saying that this government is telling CNN to end its transmission.
We are afraid of nothing, neither sitting blood, nor giving our lives, nor anything.
Throughout the day, Army helicopters swooped low over the heart of Beijing. Some dropped leaflets warning that force would be used if the demonstrators...
And of course, I got to say, well, I'm quite sure most people that know. The ones that don't, I mean, I'm sorry, but you see that transmission was in English. That Chinese that wasn't for them. That was for you. That was for the outside world. That was for the outside world. And if you think that we didn't have our own operatives in China well before this happened, well, I got bad news for you, sunshine.
Didn't give up.
The living is anything but easy, but the conditions have been eased somewhat, thanks to donations and volunteer services of civic organizations in order.
Oh, and also there were, after the fact, people that were men and women that went to colleges and universities and had some rearing outside of China, some of them in the United States. It was one guy that was there. He was a graduate from UCLA, and he went back to China. So you have those people mixed in as well. And until they open their mouth, you can't tell one from another.
Citizens.
I think people in Beijing is very kind.
Another need is being fulfilled too, money. China's state-run television, CCTV, donated some $6,000 to the cause.
I think I will never forget this gift.
The official press stressed that the army was being deployed because Beijing had fallen into chaos. Earlier in the day, protesters again set up roadblocks and barricades to prevent the troops from moving in. In an effort to win the soldiers over to their cause, demonstrators offered them food and drink and gave them newspapers with accurate accounts of the recent campaign for democracy. And there were growing indications these efforts were paying off, with persistent reports that many in the military were reluctant to use force against their own people, and that the senior leadership of the armed forces was divided over whether to follow the government's orders.
The question on everyone's lips is, will the soldiers be ordered in again in larger numbers, or will the authorities seek an alternative way out of this unprecedented crisis? Tanks, armored personnel carriers, and troop trucks came rumbling down Chang'an Boulevard towards Tienanmen Square. convoy passed. The crowds that were still in the streets scattered in panic. Some of the crowds went back out on the streets, and they are now burning a bus at an intersection near Tienanmen Square in a gesture of defiance.
Government loudspeakers told the students that they must all leave the area or they could not guarantee the safety or lives of anyone left in Tiananmen.
We have had reports that there were some students left in the center of the square, but the impression we had is that, however defiant their attitude may be, they're essentially prisoners. They're simply there awaiting their fate.
The students were incredibly brave. They were fighting live ammunition with rocks and stones, and at one point even tried to block an advancing column of about 30 armed.
Well, fascist is the wrong word. It's more like communist. I mean, but there is a difference between fascism and communism. I need to do a video on that. Mussolini versus, let's work on that.
Troop carriers with a public bus. We could see the people inside the bus being taken off and beaten.
The crackdown is going to take many more hours, if not days, before it is complete, before we will know how many people have died.
有一些在车上的时候，因为他吧，那女孩是那个手无搏击之力吧，人家打她，她把人家踹倒了，所以我就把她扶起来。当时我已经倒在地下，可是黄袍警察就根本不那一套，他用铁棍、铁锹、木棒都打了我。
Your blood. Can you tell us what happened, please? They shouted.
And many students were pushed down to the ground, and other students walked over their bodies. And I'm sure that many students died a few minutes ago.
How do you feel right now? Feel right now? I'm very angry.
In the square itself, the troops do appear to be in complete control. They gained that control at considerable cost in human life. People were being shot at random all over the place all night long. For the moment, the iron fist of the People's Liberation Army has come down on Tienanmen Square. In the heart of Beijing, the student protest has been crushed.
As soldiers terrorized the tense and chaotic capital with random shooting of unarmed civilians on Monday, reports of a split in the military leadership grew more persistent.
You see that guy?
No.
This guy from the front tank.
He's climbing it. He's climbing on.
Okay, folks, that's all we got. But I want to throw this piece in here, okay, because I ain't gonna ping CNN. I'm just gonna throw this in. All right, the man that climbed on the tank, people they just refer to him as Tank Man because they saying no one knows who he is. Yeah, that's not true. Everybody knows who someone is. Now, here's the deal on him. There's a man. All right, now it's that this man was supposedly taken and imprisoned along with hundreds of other people that were, thousands of Chinese nationals that were detained, some in prison, and a lot of them reportedly were jailed for almost their entire lives, and hundreds were executed. And some say Tank Man wasn't one of them. Some of them say he wasn't. And I know there was a report out. Every time it comes out on the web, somebody has to grab it because it don't stay up long, because China has a kung fu grip, pun intended, on their internet. It's not like it is here in the United States. It's certain websites and things, whatnot, that you don't have access to. You can't go to. But anyway, there is a man who was a professor from Hong Kong, and he said that the man was a friend of his. Now, this report, it's in Chinese, so it has to be, translated and whatnot. But anyway, this man is, and I get, well, what's his name? Would you want to tell your name? Would you want to tell your name and you a professor in Hong Kong? Okay, exactly. See, man, people in the West, and sometimes I have to catch myself too. Man, they in a whole different world where they get your face and name, you will disappear. We gonna take you to meet your buddy. But anyway, the guy was a professor from Hong Kong, and he said the man that climbed up on the tank is a friend of his, and he's an archaeologist, and he came to Beijing to protest. And according to the professor, he thought the man had escaped to Taiwan, but he didn't, because there was other people that was detained with him that said that he was there with them, and they don't think he made it out, if you know what I mean. Now, if he did find a way to get out, I don't blame him. You don't say nothing. You don't show your face. You just disappear. Because if not, they'll make you disappear. I hope you like the content that I put out here for you. Some of y'all might have known this. Some of you might not have. I'm quite sure everybody done seen just the still photo of the man, the archaeologist, standing in front of the tank. That's, But anyway, some of the people that's been released that were detained with him said that he didn't make it. And I'll say it like that just, because the machine is always listening. Y'all be good and be safe. Bye.